Hello guys, what is happening, and welcome to this live stream tonight. So a London, Ontario, might I add, builder has been placed into receivership, and they've had a development shut down. There's like $58 million in this, which the developer is seeking, or not the developer, the creditor, sorry. So we're going to go through that and all the comments associated with that, which is pretty interesting, to be honest. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Eric for sending me this article. Thank you very much, Eric. I've linked Eric's Twitter in the description there, so go give him a follow on Twitter. Thank you, Eric, for sending this to me, because Eric sent this to me, and he sends a lot of good stuff to me, and he said, this is the beginning, or this is the start, or something like that. And I totally agree. So, it's absolutely crazy what we're going into, but this is where we are. And shout out to my first Patreon, Cowson. Thank you so much, buddy. You support this channel so much. Thank you for that. And please make sure to hit the like button. That is one thing you can do to help out with the YouTube algorithm. And please subscribe. We got so many live streams and not enough time. Like, I've got a list of about 5 different things that I want to bring to you. Michael Burry, Jeremy Grantham, what they're saying. There's so much stuff out there. There was an excellent interview done here on YouTube, actually, of Jeremy Grantham, like in the past couple of weeks. It was fantastic. When that guy speaks, I always listen. So anyway, let's dig right into this. What is going on here? So London builder placed in receivership, major development shut down. Work has stopped on an ambitious North London residential and commercial development, as its London developer has been placed in receivership, with its lender seeking $57.8 million, according to Ontario Superior Court documents. So I'm guessing this is the development right here. And we're talking about London, Ontario. I just want to make this clear for everybody who's international. This is in Canada. It's not in England, where I'm from. So anyways, let's see what they're saying here. We've already gone through that. Applewood Marketplace was envisioned as a sprawling community around Sunningdale Road and Kleinberg Drive, northeast of London's Masonville area. More than 6 phases of building would add 1,500 homes plus commercial and office space, including cafes, restaurants built into historic barns on the site. The first phase of the development, an apartment complex on 2.5 acres of land at 86.5 Kleinberg Drive, is about 75% complete, but work has stopped as Marshall Zare, the Waterloo-based business that financed construction, wants its money and I don't know what that is, Ernst & Young, I guess, has taken over the project as receivers. I'm so disappointed to hear this. It was mixed use and would have had residential and office and restaurants, said Councillor Maureen Cassidy, whose ward includes the area. It was well planned. There were big plans for this. And oftentimes when there's big plans for something and you head into a downturn like this, it's completely sidelined. I mean, guys, just think of all those casinos in Las Vegas in 2008. There was many casinos, some of them which were built. I think the Wynn was one that was managed to be built just in time before everything collapsed. But there was a bunch of casinos that were like, the groundworks were in, they laid the foundation, and then the financial crisis hit. Work stopped. But really, work stopped before that. It actually stopped before that. So it's really, really interesting. So this is sort of a sign that we can use of what's going on right now. So it's very, very interesting. Keith says, my sister lives close to that, by that development. Wow, small world that we live in. But yeah, it's crazy. London has been a boom town. The housing market has been booming. Commercial real estate, I doubt. But again, there was a lot of commercial real estate on this development. So it's very, very interesting. The first phase is a 5-story mixed-use building with 107 rental apartments, 9 rental townhouses, and 15,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space. Work has not yet begun on the second phase, on a 12-acre plot of vacant land that would see 468 residential units and about 37,000 square feet of commercial space. You know, yesterday I was out, boots on the ground, going to different places, recording, you know, all this empty commercial real estate, which people tell me, you know, I went to that new place where it was all empty, and I had a very few people who were like, oh, it's just because it's new, Luke. So yesterday I went to a place that has been new in quotation marks for 12 months and it's still not filled. And I just could not believe it because they're building a massive, like 40,000 square foot industrial space behind, and they got full lease signs there. And that was really the draw to me. I was just like, wow, that's insane. I didn't even notice that before, but now they've got all the sides up around it. It's really noticeable. It sticks out like a sore thumb. And then I went to another place. So, you know, commercial real estate is just like one of these things that is collapsing. It has collapsed, but we're yet to see any repercussions of the collapse. Like, it's just kind of happened. And everybody is just kind of thinking, it doesn't really matter. I'm sure somebody's going to pay for that. Somebody's going to pick up the tab for that. Who is going to pay for that? You know, when you drive around, like, I'm very observant when I drive around and I see all this empty commercial real estate. My first question is, well, who's paying for this? Who is paying for this? Because the fact is, if it's sat empty, somebody's losing money on it. So is it the banks? Is it the person who bought it? Who is it? And, you know, at what point are they going to go bankrupt? And then it goes on to the banks and everything like that. Because everything comes back to the banks in reality. Because, you know, they could have got this loan from this other company, but the reality is that company could have got the loan from the bank at a lower interest rate, and they're just trying to pocket the spread, giving a loan out to this developer. You know, it just gets riskier and riskier as it goes down. And this is how, like, when something like this happens, it just chops it, because then, you know, they can't pay back the loan to the bank, and you know, it's just insane. And a lot of these projects started when the housing market was booming, and now, of course, it's not. So that really creates a dynamic that developers and builders really can't contain themselves. Like, you know, if you started off a condo building thinking that you were going to be at 70-80% occupancy, and you're at like 30-40%, and you've got bank loans that rely on you getting to a certain amount of occupancy, you're in trouble. You're really in trouble, and you're not going to see that instantly. It takes time to play out. So, you know, it's just kind of insane. So it's crazy. Keith says she's trying to sell her house for the last 7 weeks, dropped the price by $265,000, got 4 showings this weekend. That's pretty good, because she's showing that she's motivated to sell. So, you know, dropping the price by that much, I'm not sure what the price is. I'm guessing like $1 million. I don't know. But yeah, that's a substantial price drop. So people are going to get eyes on it just by that price drop. So it's smart to do that if you need to get rid of it and you're motivated to get rid of it. So there are also this is really sad, this part. There is also 46 liens against the development, totaling more than $8 million, largely from contractors allegedly not being paid by Applewood. You know, that's really sad to me, because the people who were building that, they're getting hurt even more. You know, they haven't even got their pay from this, you know, and they'll all be small business owners likely. And I do feel sorry for those. And this is how these people get hit. This is how these businesses, you know, construction companies get hit really bad, because they don't get paid for their work. And, you know, it is really sad when that happens, and it's just insane. That's a large amount of money, $8 million on one development in London, Ontario. It's not even like a huge, big city in Canada. It's more like a smaller city. So, it's kind of crazy. But another thing that's crazy is the interest that's accruing on this loan. So interest is accruing on this $57.8 million loan at $36,000 a day, court documents state, it says. So $36,000 a day, so that loan is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The amount owed is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it really is crazy. And this company or whatever has gone into receivership. This might lead to bankruptcy. But how many other developers are in similar situations to this? And as this says, with some of the people that talk, you can see that obviously this is something that's happening in other places as well. So it's kind of crazy. So the debtor, Applewood, failed to make payment of the amounts due and owing, the court documents stated. The debtor has committed a considerable number of events of defaults under the loans and security, which are continuing. And then this is interesting. They rope in Peter, who is president of Extra Realty in London. So he's a salesman essentially. But they rope him in. He just sold the land, and his perspective is sort of interesting, I guess. So Peter sold the land for the Applewood development and still owns more than 130 acres for future phases. He called the receivership a hiccup and is confident the project will still be built. Well, it's a bit of a hiccup because who's going to be coming to buy this thing and rescue it in a declining housing market, It's just so I mean, but this is classic sort of salesman talk, just gloss over everything that's happening and everything like that. So, what else do we expect there? I don't expect much more. The mortgage company decided to take action to protect their interests, but there's still money on the table. It's likely new finances will be found and it will be back on track. And then they've got this master plan which shows you the community and how big it's going to be. After paying Marshall Zare's debt, money from future sales of the development may flow back to Applewood, keeping it in business, he said. A lot of developers have suffered through COVID. It has delayed a lot of projects, and this triggered some dissatisfaction from lenders. Yeah, you can see how this is happening. Lenders are starting to, and that in itself is very interesting what he said there. A lot of developers have suffered throughout the pandemic, and then you've got a lot of projects that are basically being delayed, whether that's due to supply shortages, whether it's due to they can't finish the homes, they can't get garage doors or what light fixtures, whatever it is, because of supply chain issues, they can't get it. That makes things hard to complete. And then guess what? The lenders, they're getting antsy about it because they want to get paid, and they're looking at the housing market and they're getting cold feet about it. So it's not I mean, you've seen all these reports that these banks have put out, and the reports that the banks have put out are likely, let's face it, going to be the best scenario. They're not going to be the worst case scenario. I don't even think the banks are even prepared for the worst case scenario. If they actually knew what it was, it would shock them so bad. And maybe they do. So Mike Wallace is director of the London Development Institute, which represents developers. He had no knowledge of Applewood's troubles, but said builders are being hit hard by rising interest rates, labor shortages, supply chain issues, and higher costs for goods. And now all that's hitting when they can't sell for more. Like they are literally needing to reduce their prices now, all at a time where, guess what? All the materials that they're getting, they're not going down in price. So essentially, it just compresses their margins until there is no margins. And then guess what? They're not making money and the business model fails and then they go into bankruptcy. That's just the reality of what happens. You know, a lot of people don't realize that they're even in a business that relies on the bubble, and that's exactly how it relies on the bubble, because if they're in a scenario like this, they need rising prices to continue for their margins to continue to increase, or at least stay the same. Because if the costs are going up and the prices are going up of the stuff that they're trying to sell, the end product, the homes, condominiums, whatever it is, then their margins are just going to stay the same. So, and then if they're going up more than that, then it allows them to increase their margins. But now their margins are going to have to shrink. That means they're going to have to lay people off. That's exactly what we're starting to see. And, it has wide implications. And this is just one of many, in my opinion, that we're going to see and cover on this channel. It takes several years from planning stages to construction, and costs have rocketed, he said. The industry is facing a lot of issues and costs have gone up in recent months. These changes our members could not account for 5 years ago, he said. So you see, there was no preparation. Nobody knew that this was going to happen. Nobody knew that the government was going to come in and create all this inflation and literally just destroy the economy in essence, because what they've done is distorted it to an element that they put people and forced them out on the risk curve to take more and more risks, to a point that they're now so exposed, and the inflation has come and it's the tide going out. The inflation is the tide coming out. As Buffett says, something like when the tide goes out, you find out who's swimming naked. Well, that tide is the interest rates. Everybody's swimming naked as all these people who took on leverage, which is a lot of businesses too. It's not just households, it's businesses too. So incredibly interesting. So as a receiver, Ernst & Young has authority to sell the development or complete the work and then sell it. Its officials could not be reached for comment. Mike Clausen, president of Applewood Marketplace, and lawyers for Applewood also could not be reached for comment. They're probably in court proceedings, they can't speak or whatever. Anytime we hear about a project stopping due to cost and challenges, we want to know more, said Jared Zafman, chief executive of the London Home Builders Association. This development has been underway for some time, and it's in an area of the city where growth is needed. So the thing is, growth may be needed, but the reality is the climate, the economy that we're heading into is just not a place where developers and builders are going to be able to flourish. It's quite the opposite. They're going to have to contract their business. And if they don't do that, they'll probably just end up in bankruptcy court. The reality is, all these developers and stuff, they work on margins. And if their margins are getting compressed and took away, then they're in trouble. They are in trouble. They have to restructure their business to a point where they can still make money, or at least not lose that much money. Do you think that they were preparing for this a year ago? No. And that's the point. A lot of people were not preparing for this a year ago. Just look at households. Households were not preparing for this a year ago. So, you just look at what's going on and look around, and it's undeniable. It's a financial crisis in the making. When I was in the UK, I saw the same thing, commercial real estate empty. When I was in the US, I saw the same thing, commercial real estate empty. When I was in Mexico, I didn't see that, funnily enough. And here in Canada, loads of empty commercial real estate. So think about that. Think about who's paying for it. It's going to hit the fan soon enough. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. So it's really crazy when you really think about it. James G, thank you so much, buddy, for the $2 super chat. Will property tax rise all across Canada? Probably, yeah, buddy, because think about it. property taxes are going to rise with the real rate of inflation, or it's going to need to rise with the real rate of inflation. Now, the reality is cities can get financing at a much cheaper rate than me or you, for example, but they still have massive compressed margins on everything, so they need to also jack up property taxes. And I got a video coming out about condo fees and everything like that. I just think condominiums are an utter disaster just waiting to happen, and long term I just think that it's just like a Ponzi scheme, and I talk about it in that video. But you know what? Property taxes are going up. For example, like here in Alberta, some of the highest property taxes in Canada, believe it or not. So even though you got lower priced homes, you got high property taxes. I mean, there's a place called High River, just insane the amount of property taxes have gone up there. You've got people in like a 2,000 square foot house paying like over $5,000, and then the same house in like Burlington, for example, in Ontario, which is worth double the amount, they are paying like 20-30% less in property taxes. Alberta is sort of like Texas in that respect, because as I understand and have heard, Texas is also very expensive for property taxes. So yeah, property taxes, they're going to need to rise. So it's a great question. Thanks for asking that question, and thanks for the super chat, buddy. Yeah, Mexico. Yeah, you know what? When we've moved and we've been looking into how to get that all ready and sorted and everything like that right now, gonna be a huge party. Maybe it'll be live stream. I'll definitely be inviting people from YouTube who I trust anyway. Maybe we'll hire a place out or whatever. But huge party when we leave this place, because man, oh man, I've never wanted to leave a place so much as I wanted to leave Calgary. I tell you that much. It's just I'm done with this place. I want to move on with my life. I want to get out of this place. I want to get out of Canada in general. It's not just related to Calgary, although the weather does make me hate this place even more. So yeah, it's just insane. Eric says Niagara Road has obscene property taxes, double Toronto. And the thing is about like when you go to these more rural places, they don't have the arrangements that the big cities have for financing, where they can deficit spend and they can obtain all this cheap credit. But they can't obtain all this cheap credit right now. Interest rates have gone up. So the fact is that property taxes have to rise, and taxes have to rise as well. It's just that they can't raise taxes right now, even though they have, because they've done the carbon tax and they increased, I think, CPP premiums this year. So taxes have gone up in effect. But they haven't raised like income tax or anything like that, or GST or anything. Good Lord, if they did that, it would just be terrible because of inflation. Like, they can't do it. So it's absolutely... Keith says, I'm out this fall. He's heading off to Mexico. You are lucky. I hope I'm joining you very, very soon. And, Mexico, I think, is a great place. And as the Internation survey that came out, #1 place was Mexico, unlike these Mark Benioff economist surveys that come out, or companies, whatever. But anyway, I'm rambling. Thank you guys so much. Thanks, James G, for the super chat. Please make sure to hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to the channel. We've got some great things coming about the Ontario government that I've been alerted to, and their involvement in the subprime mortgage game. We're going to get into that. And we're also going to get into some other things which are just absolutely insane. So James G, another super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. BC has lowest property tax in all of North America. That's interesting. I did not know that, buddy. That's really, really interesting, actually. But you know what? Like, some of the areas of BC, especially the lower mainland, I have heard the same thing about Toronto as well. Like, Toronto has just insane amounts of, insanely low property taxes. I know that they are just absolutely insane. So it's just absolutely insane when you really think about it, because the property taxes surely should be higher on all the homes that are worth like over 1.5 million, 2 million. Shouldn't these people be paying? I mean, the laugh of it is, guys, when I drive around Calgary, for instance, and literally the roads are a disgrace. I mean, they're like flipping Mexico. They're worse in a lot of cases than Mexico when we were driving down there. And, you know, the thing is, I'm like, what is going on? Like, the roads, they should be at least smooth. You know, even Spain, Portugal, they have some of the smoothest roads, and they are rich countries. I just do not get it. Like, the city, it's like they're broke, and they take all this money in taxes. They waste it flying this helicopter around. Just all day, every day, this helicopter is flying around for the police. It's just patrolling. There's no actual crimes going on. It's just patrolling. Just an utter waste of people's tax dollars. But that's what they like to do, just waste tax dollars. They don't live in reality. So anyway, thank you so much, James G, for the 2 super chats, buddy. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you, everybody, for being on the live stream. Thank you, Eric, for letting me know about this. If you have anything, message me on Instagram or Twitter. Best ways to get a hold of me are there, or even Patreon if you're on there. But yeah, anyway, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Like it, subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye-bye. Take care.